youth are very worried about being judged. And I would have youth come into my office just in tears. You know, some of the stuff, again, they were dealing with suicide, depression, social media, the bullying. Every youth, every person has a story. The biggest impact I want to be remembered for is that all it takes is one person to make a difference. My company is called Diamond in the Rough. And the reason behind that is no matter who you are, the stories, the trials, the traumas that you've been through, we each have a diamond inside of us.
Welcome to the Legacy Podcast, brought to you by MCG Career College, where we bring you inspiring stories of resilience, leadership, and transformation. I'm your host, Raisa Afrida, and today we have an extraordinary guest whose name is Carlamay Sheremata. With over 20 years in law enforcement, Carlamay has been on the front lines of crisis, mentorship, and advocacy. She's a cancer survivor, a single parent, and a champion for youth, women, and newcomers. As a speaker, author, and family mediator, she's helping bridge generational gaps and empower communities. Today, we will dive into her journey, her mission, and the legacy she hopes to leave behind. Carlamay, welcome to our podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. Let's get to know you first. I would love to tell our audience about your journey. So what initially inspired you to serve in law enforcement, and how has your perspective evolved throughout the years?
So I ended up starting in oil and gas, actually. So I did PR and marketing for oil and gas for a few years. And back then, as a woman, there wasn't a lot for us to do. I mean, we couldn't even get into the petroleum club downtown because it was a men's only, right? So as I started kind of seeing what was going on with that, and as a female, kind of trying to figure out, well, what can I do that men and women do the same job and get paid the same as well? And I'd always loved kind of the detective and looking into investigating and stuff, and took some criminal justice studies and law in university. So thought, you know what, why not try getting into the police service? And within a couple months, I ended up getting in. And that was not a usual thing, because people usually would get deferred for 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of felt the door was open.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was meant to happen.
Yes.
And what do you think now about your journey in law enforcement for 20 years? Is that the same dream that you had when you joined, and did you achieve it?
You know, I didn't know what I wanted to achieve at that time. I'll be completely honest with you with that. When I look back, I wanted to do something that was different. I've never been an inside of the box person. And so becoming a cop for me, and especially, you know, I have my pink fingernails, hair and makeup. I love fashion.
Yeah.
So going into a role of a uniform, kind of being put into this box as a cop, throughout the years, I never fit into there. So I always had a pink fingernail sticking out, you know, pink toenails sticking out. And when I look back now, I had an amazing career. And I didn't know where it was going to take me. But when I look back to where I had started, I had always wanted to work with youth, even when I had come out of university. But I was informed I would have to go back and get a teaching degree back then. And I did not want to be a teacher, but I wanted to be able to still, you know, work and empowering young girls and stuff. And so once I was able to work in the high schools as a cop, that allowed me now to work with the youth, work with the girls. And so it kind of took me into a full circle.
Interesting. Wow. You're still an educator. Even though you're not in a classroom, you're still educating people out there. And you know, these are our future generation that you're helping.
Yes.
So my next question is related to that, is you've worked closely with youth, women, newcomers. So sometimes there are also vulnerable sector out there, right? What are some of the most common struggles they face, and how can communities better support them?
So when I look back, a lot of for instance, the newcomers that have come here, many families that I've worked with, when they look back, and from the communities that they have come from, the village has raised the child, and they have had support in that way. When they come here, they're finding that they don't have that support here.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is finding and building that community, and whatever that looks like, because as we know, everybody's very different, and every community is very different for what that looks like. When it comes to youth, just in general, some of the struggles, I mean, we're still seeing mental health as a big struggle. We're still seeing some parenting as well, because when you have the newcomer families coming here, again, culture shock is a big thing. And as parents, sometimes there's that shame and stigma of, should I ask for help? Because I should know how to do this. But it's very different here. And so for the families to be able to know that they can ask for help, to know that there's resources, to know that what is going on in the schools and with their youth is very, very important to understand. And then again, finding that community base of how that they can work together with that.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you actually talked to the parents when you had any incident with the youth? Would you engage in conversations like that?
Yes, and when I worked in the high school, so I was a school resource officer for 8.5 years, and that was a big thing, is because a lot of times we wanted to get the families involved, because it's important. What I did find, though, in some of the schools was there was a number of newcomer parents who, because English was not their first language, they struggled with how to engage with the teachers and the staff at the schools. So, for instance, they wouldn't show up for parent-teacher interviews because their English wasn't very good. They felt shameful that they could not engage and understand what was going on with their kids. And yet, if they used their kids as translators, some of the times the kids would not relay exactly what was being told. So I worked with the schools to bring in translators and say, on one of the days, put out an email in a bunch of the different dialects and the languages and say, hey, on this day, we're having these translators come in. Would you like to come in and meet your teacher, your kids' teachers, find out how the kids are actually doing, but be able to speak to the teacher through a translator? And it was amazing, the response that we got, because the parents actually felt now that they were being seen and heard and valued, and that they could come in and respond and talk with the teacher of what was going on.
Well, that's really good to know, because Carlamay, to be truthful, when we came to Canada, I came with my parents.
Yeah.
And me and my sister, we started noticing that there is a huge cultural shock, and there is a lot of new opportunities, a lot of things that we can share and seek help for that we did not think about before. And it was very hard for us to even convey this message to my parents, because in South Asian communities, sometimes mental health is not a big deal. We don't talk about it. It's just, you deal with it. That's it.
Yeah.
But it was me and my sister, when we went to university, we started noticing that there's so many resources, and we talked about that with our parents, but they themselves were so struggling with, like how to find a job, how to pay for rent, and all this kind of things, that there was a time when they just did not have time to listen, or they didn't have the resources that we had. And it was very interesting how you say that you should find a community to seek help with, because a village raised a child, right? What we did is we found our other Bangladeshi community members. We did lots of, religious events, cultural events. And once they found new friends and new family members in Canada, they felt more comfortable about learning from them, because they were already here. They were telling them how going for counseling can be so helpful, or how meditation could help, simple as that. And it did help us, and not only helped us, it also helped my parents, because my dad worked his entire life in army, went through so much stuff. And we never had a conversation about, hey, Dad, the things you have seen, what about that? Have you taken care of yourself? Just never had time to just sit down and relax. But now our life has changed for the good, and everyone is doing well. So I'm very happy that you are also educating other people about that. talking about educating people.
Yes.
I know that you have written a wonderful book. It's called Youth Truth, and it focuses on bridging generational gaps. What are some of the biggest misconceptions adults have about today's youth?
The biggest one is, as adults, we feel that we know it all, or that we've been through it, so we've got the right answers. And many times, yes, we do have the right answers, and yes, we have been through things and similar things, but it is very different nowadays. And what the youth are actually going through, whether, with social media, bullying, self-harm, suicide, even domestic violence in the relationships. What is a healthy relationship? A lot of times we don't spend that time as adults, as parents, grandparents, advocates for youth, talking to our youth about and engaging with these hard conversations. And so a big one, again, is that judgment's a huge thing. Youth are very worried about being judged. Never mind about their own peers judging them, but about adults, their parents judging them. So that's another huge one. And being heard. Interestingly enough, as adults, we want to be seen, heard, and valued. Youth are the exact same way. So when it comes to being heard, what does that look like? As an adult, that means to actually be active in listening. So sometimes it means to literally be quiet, hear what the youth is saying, and then even ask them, would you like some advice, or do you just want me to listen to what you have to say? Because many of the youth just want to be heard.
Sometimes listening helps the most, right?
Yeah. And we learn so much through listening, especially with our youth.
In that case, so this book is not for youth only, it's for the parents who are raising maybe children or teenagers, or it could be for the educator who work in schools, colleges, places like that, right?
And even for adults who have like their adult kids. I had an email come back about 2 months ago. It was an older gentleman who had seen me speak, and he had not been able to connect with his 32-year-old son. They had not connected very well throughout the years. He was not okay with the lifestyle that was going on with his son, and even being able to get connected with his grandkids, he was really struggling. And he said he got the book and read it. And for the first time, he sat down with his 32-year-old son, and they had an actual 2.5-hour conversation. And he said he learned why his son was so angry at him for however many years it had gone on. And he learned what he needed to connect with his son. And after that, he said now he's able to spend time with his grandkids and understand where they're coming from. Spending time every 2 weeks, his son and him go for supper, and they just talk. And he said he didn't realize what he had missed and what he was continuing to miss in that connection and engagement.
Oh my God.
So it's not just, again, for youth advocates or people who have youth in their lives. I think it can even be more just with the tools that it offers.
That's amazing to know. You already made such a positive impact in their lives, and I'm sure you have touched so many other lives in a positive way, not just with the book, but with your work. I do want to ask one more question about the book, though.
Okay.
What inspired you to write it?
So when I was working in the high schools, I really noticed that there was this disengagement between the adults and the youth. And I would have youth come into my office just in tears. You know, some of the stuff, again, they were dealing with suicide, depression, social media, the bullying, anything dealing with the phones. And when we would get the parents connected with what was going on, many parents either didn't realize that this was going on with their kids. Many parents, again, there was the judgment. You bring in the culture, you bring in religion. When you're talking about sex, for instance, right? In a lot of cultures or a lot of religions, it is literally forbidden, right? So it's not talked about. But these are the conversations that we need to be connecting with our kids. And even with suicide, if we are worried about our child and suicide, why can't we ask, are you feeling like hurting yourself? Because at that moment, now that child or that youth feels like they are valued and they're heard and seen, if we don't, maybe, that they have been thinking about it, and that is something that nobody's talked to them about it, so they're going to go do it because that's they feel is the only way out. So by allowing them to realize that we see them and that we know that they're there, and that now we can actually talk about this and it's okay to talk about, it's amazing what it opens up. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very important for us to just be able to talk about it and to let our kids know that this is, how we can connect and engage. And after seeing that, I knew in my heart I needed to write a book regarding this. And whether it be stories, tools, whatever it was, I didn't want it to be a self-help book, because as parents, we don't need another self-help book. We come into parenting with what we've seen, what we know, what we've been taught. But sometimes we just need those extra tools to bring into our toolbox to work with some of our kids.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So Carlamay, I know that you have battled cancer and you won. And you have battled with PTSD. And then you also face some challenges as a single parent. I do want to know that how did these experiences shape your resilience, and what advice do you have for others facing adversity?
When it comes to resilience, I think every single person looks at it in a different way, and it affects people in a very different way. For myself, I believe for me, the biggest thing with resilience was knowing that, number one, I had a young child and I knew that I needed to keep going. And so literally you go into a survival mode, but I think that survival mode also shows you, and it showed my son, that, you know what, I wasn't giving up, that I was going to keep going. And as I look forward with resilience and what that actually looks like for me, again, it's going past your fears, because I know I still struggle with fear and self-doubt. And there's days where I sit back and go, what I'm doing, and even with the book, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this actually touching people the way that it needs to be touching them? And what kind of impact do I want to have with this? And it's getting past that fear, because I know that once I get past that fear, it's amazing what's on that other side. And that for me is showing the resilience to keep going and being able to kind of continue to shape of what's going to go. So again, every person is different. And I think we all know that what our resilience can look like. Sometimes though, it's getting past that fear to be able to go forward and keep going with that resilience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I do have a question though. So if there is a single youth listening to you right now and they're going through any hurdles with their children, what is the one thing that you want to advise?
The one thing that's important is believe in yourself, because no matter what, you can do it. And there's going to be struggles that come forward. There's going to be trials that are going to come, and your kids are going to test you. And just know, no matter what, that you are an amazing person. You are an amazing parent, and you have got what it takes to keep going. And if you feel you don't, please make sure to get help. Ask for help, whether that means counseling, whether that means asking, there's a number of Facebook groups that for parenting, for help with struggling with mental health, all of that kind of stuff. Go and have a look to see what's out there, because it's very, very important to know you're not alone, and that no matter what, you can still get through this. Even though some days you might feel that you can't. And I know what that feels like, because even while I was going through my divorce, there were times when I didn't want to get out of bed. And when I actually looked at myself and kind of said, okay, you know what? No matter what, I know I'm still worth putting my feet onto the floor, getting myself up. And if that's what it takes, even just to have to talk yourself to do it, that is each step is important, but know that you are worth it, that you are deserving of it, and to have belief in yourself.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure it's inspiring someone out there. Now, my next question is about something where, there are times when I know that you're a mediator, you're a speaker, but there are times when it comes to difficult dialogues. What are the strategies do you use to foster trust and this type of meaningful dialogue in a difficult conversation with the youth?
So I believe that there's a few main ones. The first one is, again, it's no judgment. Youth need to realize that no matter what, they can come forward. There's a safe space. Again, a safe space is something very different for everybody. Mm-hmm. But if they know that they can come and they're not going to be judged, they know that they're going to be heard. So active listening as parents or grandparents, whoever it is that a coach even that is listening to a youth or giving them that space. And then for them to realize that what they are saying, there may be advice given, but there may not. And that, again, it's okay for you to ask them, would you like some advice, or would you like me to just listen to you? When, as adults, we take that time, number one, to have the no judgment and to have that active listening, the barriers that get broken are huge. And of course, like you talked about with the trust, I had a mom contact me. She had a 15-year-old who they had not connected. She could not connect with him. She did not know what to do with this child. And he would game, and that was kind of all he did. He'd eat his supper as fast as he could to get down to his gaming. And I said to her one day, I said, you know what? What about if you go down and ask him, can you teach me how to game? And she rolled her eyes because she hated gaming. But like many of us parents do. But she's like, I don't understand it either. So that kind of puts everything. But I said, go down and ask him. So she's like, oh, okay. So she went down, asked him, you know what? Can you teach me how to game? And he looked at her and he's like, you hate gaming. Why do you want me to teach you? And she said, I want to connect with you. And so if this is the only way that I can connect with you, I'm going to learn how to do this. So he gave her a controller and, kind of taught her a little bit which buttons to press. And of course, she died pretty quickly. But, they didn't talk at all throughout the entire thing. So she finished and went upstairs, told him thank you. Went upstairs and she said 2 weeks later, he comes up and, he kind of looks around the kitchen to make sure nobody was there. And he said, Mom, can I talk to you? And she said, I had to hold on to the countertop because she said, I was so shocked that my child was coming up to want to talk to me. And all of a sudden, he started talking to her about what was going on at school and some stuff that was going on with his friends and how he felt that with gaming, he could come into a safe space for him, that he could connect with whoever was on there, had the same, the same things that they like to do, but it was also self-soothing for him. Mm-hmm. And he said that when she came down to play with him, he said, Mom, I actually felt seen. And I felt that you valued me to come down and take time out of your schedule. Wow. And she told me that when he did that for her, she said, she had to contain herself so she didn't start crying. But he went downstairs and she said, holy cow, this was something she would have never thought of. Mm-hmm. And so now, every week they have, whether it's a 20-minute or 30-minute time, and he's found some fun games so that she can play and she doesn't die really quickly. But now they actually talk and they laugh. And she said they hadn't done that before. So again, she came into his safe space, and even if she didn't want to do it, she did it and was able to now tear down that wall to be able to engage and connect with him. So as parents, we know what our kids like doing. We know situations that could be driving them to school, to hockey practice, to, their after school activities. Even if it's that 10 or 15 minutes in the car, I call it windshield time. Nobody has to look at each other, but you still talk, right? And you might learn stuff that you may have never learned if you would have never had that time together.
That's so true. Everything that you were saying, I can relate to that. And one of the things was, my sister, she finished her undergrad with really good GPA, but she loves gaming. And all she does is she's in her room, the door is closed, and she's gaming, right? And even yesterday, my dad is like, oh my God, why does she game all the time? Who's she talking to? And I'm like, Dad, this is her space where no one is seeing you, who you are as a person, but you guys are all in the same place. They're all playing one game. They have all one mission. Maybe she feels like she belongs there and no one will judge her. And she's talking to people around the world.
Yeah.
I did not know what gaming was until just a couple of years ago when I saw my fiance playing those games. And he's talking to this different type of people. And this is also a type of relaxation for them.
It is.
I do want to ask you a question, though. I want to ask you about some suggestions for the community, for the parents, about cultural adjustment.
Okay.
I know that Canada is a very multicultural country, and since you have worked in those high schools, you've seen youth from all around the world. Now, it is a challenge when it comes to newcomers. What are some key ways educators, parents, or even the community leaders can help with when it comes to young people? Like, what can they do to youth to adapt into this new culture?
So going back to even when you were talking about your fiance and your sister with gaming, they're finding their community, right? So they're being able to connect with community. And so when it comes to parents or leaders of these communities, the biggest thing is giving these youth a sense of community. And so again, what that looks like is very different for each youth. However, as a leader, getting to know where that youth has come from, getting to know who they are. So that means finding out their story. Every youth, every person has a story. And I believe it is so important for us to get to know what that is. And when you start listening to the story of that youth, it is amazing what else comes out. When you look at some of these youths, they've been in refugee camps. They've been brought up in refugee camps. So they may have had schooling till grade 3. Then their families have been trying to move them into another country, and they've been placed in these refugee camps. And what happens is now there's a lot of traumas and stories that they've gotten from these refugee places. And so now when they come to Canada, they're bringing all of that and their traumas from there here. And if we don't know who they are, know their stories, and understand where they've come from, that is a huge blockage. And that puts up a huge wall, not only for community members and for leaders, but also the youth. Why do they want to talk to somebody or become vulnerable or open up with somebody who really doesn't seem to care about who they are and where they come from? So I believe that is a very, very important thing for leaders, like community leaders, for religious leaders, anybody who is trying to bring in our youth into these different communities.
Thank you so much, Carlamay. I do want to share one more thing with our audience, that beside your professional work, you also sing, because we have seen you sing on our graduation ceremony, the national anthem. You also do lots of volunteering. You also spend some family time. But I do want to know that how these passions contribute to your mission of empowerment.
The contribution I'm finding is I love giving back. For me, I was asked probably a few months ago a question of if money wasn't an object and if education and anything of that wasn't an object and you could do anything, what would you do? And the first thing for me that came to mind is volunteering, being on boards, being able to solve problems, whether it is, breakfast programs for some of our youth where food is, their families can't afford food or being able to get that, or programs for some of our youth where it brings out some of their music, their artsy sides, stuff like that. So for me, it's been just being able to give back. And I look at everything that, I've done, even with policing. The most joy that comes out for me is just being able to be part of the communities and to be able to know that the impact that I can have in these different areas. So that, I don't know if that actually fully answers the question, but that is kind of what my mission and kind of that empowers me.
That's amazing. So definitely these things drive you to do what you do today. And I do know that one of your initiatives was very successful when I think that was something to do with young girls where you did some sort of group during lunchtime or something. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So we called it Girl Power. And it was at one of the high schools I was at. I was noticing as, walking through the halls, a lot of the girls were they'd either be in their phones or you could tell that they were just dealing with things that they weren't talking to people about. So I started at one day a week, we would meet up. I'd bring food, of course, so we'd have pizza. And we would just have girls come. And we started talking about everything from nutrition, because, we're dealing with bulimia and anorexia a lot. We would talk about healthy relationships. What does love look like? What doesn't it look like? Mm-hmm. Even with sex, and when you're being asked, well, send me these kind of photos, or if you love me, you'll have sex with me. These kind of things, because I feel that the youth need to realize what true love really is, what healthy relationships are. And then also, we made little cards that would say, you are beautiful, you are loved, you are worthy, you are deserving. So when we would see some of these girls in the hall kind of, down and not really knowing what was going on with them, we'd kind of give them a card.
Oh,
and you just
so
watch
their face grow, right?
Because all of a sudden they were seen, they were valued.
Yeah.
Right? So for that, and even one of the other things was with dressing. Women and girls, they all want to be sexy, right? But there's a difference between classy and sexy and slutty and sexy. Mm-hmm. So we would talk to the girls and about what that looks like and what that means.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Those little gestures have made such a great, impact on so many girls' lives. Thank you so much for doing that, Carlamay. Now it brings me to the last question. That's my favorite question. It is about your legacy. So legacy is a powerful word, and I want to know that what legacy do you hope to leave behind, and what impact do you want to be remembered for?
The biggest impact I want to be remembered for is that all it takes is one person to make a difference. My company is called Diamond in the Rough, and the reason behind that is no matter who you are, the stories, the trials, the traumas that you've been through, we each have a diamond inside of us. And many of us have a tarnished diamond, or even a diamond that's still in the rough. All it takes is one person to start polishing, to start chipping away at finding out who we really are and giving us different opportunities and chances. And we can start shining in ways that many of us have not even realized we can shine in. And so that's what I want people to realize. I want you to be that one person that can help to change the trajectory of somebody's life, and that can help to bring even a new look on life for people. So that for me is how my legacy and the impact that I want to leave.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Carlamay, for sharing those very intimate stories and, your dream and your legacy with us. We're so fortunate to have you here. And definitely I need to read this book, because we do deal with youth here at MCG College, where sometimes maybe they just need someone who can listen to them.
Yes.
Right? Thank you so much for everything
today.
Thank
you very much for having me.
Thank you. To our listeners and viewers, if you have enjoyed enjoyed our conversation, then feel free to reach out to Carlamay. You can find her on her website, which is www.carlamaysheremata.com. Or if you want to learn more about how to help youth or yourself, you can definitely read her book, Youth Truth, on Amazon. Also, if you enjoyed today's podcast and want to stay in touch with us to know about our future guests and to learn more new things, then feel free to hit the like button or subscribe us, or just shoot us a comment and ask us some questions. We will be right with you with our next segment. Till then, take care and keep making communities great.
MCG, making communities great.